Alright, so since in the last video of this project we had to move this front differential further back to get the steering to work, I also had to shorten this drive shaft by about 1.5 inches. Now looking at this, I definitely want to build some type of cover over this drive shaft because worst case, if this does break, I don't want this whipping around and taking my legs out. I'll also add one down here because this is about 1 inch away from my butt. Now, I was just about to tack this in place as well as this right here, but I just realized if I did that, then there'd be no way to be able to remove this drive shaft without having to first remove the gearbox, because the way that I remove this drive shaft is I first pull the pin on the front differential, then I slide this back, that pulls it off the splines on the front differential, then I have to slide it forward to pull it off of here, and if I did that, there'd be no way to pull this, to slide it forward because it's just going to hit this, and actually the spacing between here and here, this won't fit through that. I thought about moving this forward, but then this still wouldn't fit through here, so I'd have to make this removable. So I think I can figure out a better way to protect this side without this. I don't think this is going to work. So this is the only way I can think of on how to be able to still remove this drive shaft, but also, worst case, if this breaks and this keeps spinning for any reason, it'll make it to where it can't hit the seat. It's not going to go over here and rattle around or anything, so this should hopefully keep it contained in here and just, not damage anything. So now, I should probably add some type of sheet metal over this because we don't want this drive shaft exposed. We don't want this sucking in clothing or shoelaces or anything. So I kind of want to add sheet metal to all this. Now, I was originally thinking of using aluminum because I like aluminum. It's a lot lighter, but for small panels like this, it just kind of makes it a nightmare and you have to have 1,000,000 tabs. So I think just to make things easier, I'm just going to use sheet metal. I just finished bending this up, and this goes over here just like that. Now I put this tubing in such a way where I can still remove the pin that holds the drive shaft in place. So what I'm going to do is make it to where I'll make another cover that goes over this. That will be removable, so therefore I can remove the pin off of here to remove the drive shaft. So, and then I'll just weld all this stuff in place. Alright, so this should definitely help protect us from the drive shaft. Now, I want to add a little bit more tubing to the front, just because I'm going from here to here, same on the other side, definitely something from here down to here to strengthen this up a little bit, as well as I probably should add a little bit of cross bracing, going from the front to the back, just to help strengthen up the frame a little bit more. Alright, so I think that's all the tubing I need to add to the front to strengthen it up. Now, next, I want to add the covers. It's going to go over the CV axles and the steering, so therefore we can rest our feet on here and not be resting it on the CV axle or the steering. Now, I just tacked these in place, and I have these two sheets of steel, and I think I'm going to bend them up, so therefore it goes down to here, goes over the CV axle, and then connects back down to the frame right here. But I need to make sure that once these are welded in place, we can still remove the differential. So we got the covers for the CV axles and the rack and pinion all tacked in place. Now, I made them in such a way where the heel of my foot rests against this right here, so therefore I can still have my feet resting against something and have room for pedals and everything. So this is going to be throttle, and this is going to be brakes. Now eventually I'm going to want to add some sheet metal in here, definitely back here, over here, maybe some in here, and definitely a skid plate underneath this thing, so therefore when I drive through a puddle I don't get drenched with muddy water. Now we'll work on that later. We'll also work on the pedals later. Right now I want to work on something else. So this frame definitely needs a bit more triangulation, a bit more cross bracing to strengthen it up a little bit more. Let's first install the engine, so therefore we can make sure that whatever tubing we add is not going to be in the way of the engine. Also, I want to add a piece of tubing going from here down to here, then from here up to here, because right now there's this part of the tubing is the only thing holding up the whole weight of the back end of this thing, and right now there's nothing really supporting this piece of tubing, so I want to add a piece of tubing going from here down to here, and then maybe even some cross bracing behind the seats just to help strengthen up the frame a bit more. Is the table even holding my weight? Yeah, do you think I need a better table? Alright, that's the engine installed. Alright, so I added this to strengthen up the frame this way. I was going to add another piece of tubing, or another couple pieces of tubing going from here down to that corner, but the expansion chamber's in the way, and I don't really think we need it. I think this is enough. Alright, so now that we have the engine installed, we need to make it to where the fiberglass fits on the frame with the engine installed and the carburetors and the expansion chamber that sticks out the side of the frame right here. Now looking at this, I was kind of hoping that the engine was going to be more around this opening, so therefore we didn't have to cut so much of this fiberglass, but I mean the spark plugs are right here, the back of the engine is right around here. Now I'm just hoping that we can get the carburetors to fit without having to cut into the tail section, or whatever this is called, on the fiberglass. Then we need to figure out how much of this we need to cut away to be able to make it to where the expansion chamber sticks out of the frame right here. Yeah, whoops, wasn't paying attention to where I was cutting, and I accidentally cut the spark plug boots just a little bit, so yeah, whoopsies. I'll have to buy new ones, or I may even have, because I've had to replace these before, I may even have the old ones, and those may work. Now, I'm gonna have to cut just a little bit more of this to get the carburetors to fit, and hopefully I don't have to cut into this. Yeah, luckily I didn't really have to cut that much of the fiberglass to get it to fit on here with the engine, and the carburetors do fit on here perfectly. It's probably going to be a little tricky trying to get air filters on these carburetors, but I'll figure something out. Now, cutting out the hole for the expansion chamber is going to be a little bit tricky. Now, this is roughly where the tubing is behind this fiberglass, and this is roughly where the expansion chamber is sticking out of the frame. Now, with these kind of projects, I try to make it to where we don't have to remove any components to be able to remove the fiberglass body on and off of this thing, because when I'm working on the engine, working on things, I'm kind of having to remove this on and off kind of a lot, and if I have to like remove the muffler system or have to unhook some hoses to get the fiberglass body off, that just makes it way too much work to work on this thing. And the easy way I could make it to where we can, you know, still leave the muffler system on this thing and remove the fiberglass is I could just cut a giant hole right here, so therefore we can lift the fiberglass body off, but I don't really want to do that. It'd be cutting a huge portion of this fiberglass body off. It would kind of ruin the look of the wheel well right here, and I don't really want to do that, so I've been trying to figure out, is there a better way to do this? And I came up with an idea of, what if we cut this fiberglass body into two separate pieces? What if we cut it in half right here and make a back half and a front half? That way, we can cut a half circle out of the back half and another half circle out of the front half, and the fiberglass bodies join together around the expansion chamber and fit perfectly. We won't have to cut any of this, and it'll fit a lot better around the expansion chamber. And also, it'll make it to where it's a little bit easier to work on the engine, because if we ever have to remove the fiberglass body to work on the engine, we only have to remove the back half. So I'm going to figure out exactly where I'm going to cut this in half. I'm going to add 2 more bolts, bolting this to the frame. 2 down here, maybe even 2 up here. Same on the other side, just so therefore the fiberglass bodies line up again when we put this stuff back together. And then we can cut out the hole for the expansion chamber. I can't even see what I'm trying to weld. Also, it's impossible to get to. Did I weld it? Kind of. This one on this side, I can't even see it. But yet I'm trying to weld it. I can't even get the torch in here. I get it? I have no idea if I got it. It's a bit challenging when you can't see what you're trying to weld. Now, I want this cut to be as small and as accurate as possible, so I'm going to use this hacksaw blade, and I'm going to cut it by hand. I was going to use that cutoff saw that I have, but it's a little too easy to take off a little bit too much material. Plus, it doesn't cut that straight, so we'll see if this works. Alright, here goes nothing. So I'm starting to kind of go offline, but it doesn't matter if you're here because we're cutting this out for the expansion chamber, so let me just use this thing. This one, we have to be really careful to be a perfect straight line. That one, I kind of messed up, but I kind of got away with it because we are cutting out that huge hole for the expansion chamber. With this one, on this side, we're not doing that, so this one has to be perfect. So now we can put the expansion chamber back on and start cutting the fiberglass. Not bad at all. A little bit of unevenness on the top, but down here, that's almost perfect. This looks not bad at all. Now I will be adding a 3/4 inch to 1 inch gap between the expansion chamber and this fiberglass, because obviously the expansion chamber does get hot. We don't really want this next to the fiberglass, so I'll just cut a gap between all this stuff, and I'll do the same thing I did with the Mini Baja Bug project, where I added an aluminum strip all the way around it, because the aluminum can be next to the expansion chamber, but we don't really want the fiberglass next to it. So we now have the fiberglass reinstalled with the engine installed. I kind of really like the look of the top of the cylinder head sticking out of the back of the fiberglass. I'm kind of really liking the look of this project. Now, my original plan was I was going to start working on, in the next video next week, I was going to start working on the cross kart project. But this week's been freezing cold. Next week's going to be even colder, and I kind of don't really want to start a new project when it's freezing cold out. So I may just continue working on this thing, and then hopefully once it gets warmer in the next couple weeks, then I will start the cross kart project. Also, I'm kind of still waiting on some parts, things, to get here to be able to work on it. Now, I really want to get to the point where we can strip this whole thing down and weld the frame together, and to do that, all we need to do is install the hoop behind my head. We need to install the radiator, the pedals, the gear shifter, the gas tank. We need to install the skid plates, as well as a cover for the CVT, because I don't want to, drive this thing through a puddle and then the CVT gets soaking wet and just slips really bad. Also, I did buy a top-end rebuild kit for this engine, because this thing has kind of always had low compression. And last time we had this engine running, which is actually at Durham town, every time I revved the engine, a bunch of coolant would be spitting out of the overflow valve right here, which kind of tells me that it's possibly a head gasket is bad. So I bought new pistons, new rings. I did have a thought of maybe that means that the cylinder walls are cracked. So actually a couple days ago I took the head off, took all 3 heads off on this engine, and I inspected the cylinder walls as far as I could with the pistons all the way down, and as far as I could tell, I do not see any cracks, which is good, but there is kind of a lot of pitting in the cylinder walls just from rust, which I know is not good, but it doesn't look very deep. I think I can hone it out. I'm also going to buy a new water pump for this because remember the other engine we have had a bad water pump, so I'm probably just going to buy a new one for this. For the radiator, I did buy one that's the exact same size as the one on the Mini Baja Bug project, and that one kind of has some overheating issues. But with this one, I'm going to try to get better airflow. I'm going to try to make it so it's not so far down in the frame, as well as we will definitely be adding radiator fans and all that kind of stuff. Now, yeah, it doesn't really sound like much of all the things we need to do before we can weld the frame together, but it's somehow probably going to turn into 3 or 4 videos. Because A, this stuff kind of takes forever to do, and B, it's winter, it's kind of freezing cold, so productivity during the winter time is always way slower than in the summertime, so just bear with me with that. But anyway, I guess that's it for this video. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see ya in the next video.